Hey guys and girls, sorry I'm late on, but I'm finally here to talk about Yellowjackets Season 3, Episode 5. The episode is called Did Ty Do That? And yes, we're at the halfway point of Yellowjackets Season 3. Hard to believe.
Body. She's dead.
We found him guilty. I say if Ben wanted to play with fire, then we give him fire.
It feels fishy. I need to leave this house.
Do enjoy Misty's delivery of the line. It feels fishy. I can't really do it, but I do love that delivery. Weakest episode of the season so far, if I'm being honest. It did feel more of a filler episode. There were definitely highlights. I think the best scene of the episode was in the adult timeline, and I'm not sure the last time I've said that, but there's a really great scene in the adult timeline this week, and probably if you've seen the episode, you might know the one I'm talking about. Some really good Misty in this episode, particularly in the adult timeline. I think Shauna actually has a better episode this week in the adult timeline. I'm pretty much always invested and interested in her in the wilderness. But I think she does have a better storyline. Well, overall, a lot of Yellowjackets episode, once you think about them and go through some of the scenes, then it does give you a bit more to chew on at least. And it, you know, in a couple of episodes time when we see how this plays out, some of this stuff may come good. We open in the morgue with Misty looking at Lottie's body. I really like actually the dual shot with Misty first of all appearing as adult Misty, and then we get a look at teenage Misty. And that's just one of these great little tricks where it's saying this stuff has lived with them for years. Lottie has meant a lot to Misty for a great deal of her life, really. She's known her in one way or the other since they were teens. Walter can't understand sometimes is no matter how wrong sometimes these characters may seem for each other, there's that undeniable bond because of what they went through together all those years ago. And so I think having teenage Misty in that shot after we see adult Misty looking at Lottie's dead body was a fantastic choice. And it sort of sums up their history. So in classic Misty fashion, she blackmails the morgue guy, Fred, who is also happens to be a fellow citizen detective. She blackmails him into letting her have Lottie's personal effects. Misty tells the others that Lottie is dead later, and it's been declared as an accident. She fell down the stairs, claim the police and the morgue people. Well, Misty smells something fishy, which is, as I said, great line delivery. Now, Van's the MVP of this scene, I think, because Lauren Ambrose's deadpan reactions to everything are just so funny and sharp. When Shauna accuses Misty, most predictable thing ever, Van is kind of on brand. Van also says, did Misty just storm out of her own house? As Misty does indeed do that. Just pissed off that they're accusing her. Once again, I do feel sorry for Misty in both timelines this season. So, as predictable as Shona accusing Misty was, she actually has some good reasons this time. Misty has motive, Shona says, because Nat would still be alive if not Lottie. So it's a decent theory. She says Misty leading the investigation would be the perfect cover-up for Lottie's death. I think Misty is a little bit too smart to really put herself in the frame like that. It would go against her MO. So it's a decent theory from Shona, but I'm not quite buying it for that reason. Shona also points out that Misty left the nursing home early yesterday, so she was free around the time of the crime, or supposed crime. This is a better episode for adult Shona, as I said, because of little moments like that. Well-directed scene. Shona is tailed by someone in a car. There's a nice misdirect because she's following Misty, but the person in the car following Shona turns out to be Walter, looking as creepy as fuck. Because Elijah Wood, I'm sorry, is creepy. I can't take him seriously as a good guy. Yes, he is creepy.
Can I help you?
What do you mean?
Can I help you with something? What are you doing here?
I'm not really sure what you're asking.
Oh. Thanks.
Walter says he is the lead citizen detective on the case now, and Shauna's his lead suspect because of her past. She has a nice comeback, though, as she rightly points out, she didn't murder Adam Martin, and points the finger at both Walter and Misty, pointing out that they both got body counts in their past. Now, she's spot on, because Walter, of course, killed Kevin, who was innocent at the end of season 2, when knocking him out would have been about right.
Q, alas, I'm a lifelong asthmatic. But I am a citizen detective. Have you heard of us? Community, very tight-knit. Oh my gosh, my manners. Why it is that you are here. Hot cocoa? There's practically a coven of them, all up to no good. Phenobarbital. Oh, surprisingly fast acting. Walter Tattersall, friend of Misty's. You haven't heard about me yet. Jeff Sadecki, I presume? Beautiful false confession. I could see it came out of real love.
It's me, Austin! Oh, son of a bitch! What? It's me, Austin! It was me all along, Austin!
Speaking of creepy son of the bitches, sorry, that's the last time I'll have Vince on here. Walter and Shona agree they have a vested interest and agree to work together on the investigation. But what's Walter's endgame, as I've already suggested? Is he up to something? Can he be trusted? You tell me. Walter being played more as a shady, in-between character works well for me, I think, because Elijah Wood excels in that kind of role. Misty, wearing Natalie's jacket, which is a nice touch, sneaks into a stairwell where Lottie fell to her death. There's a lot of this sort of thing. She sees scratch marks on the wall. Imagines Lottie struggling on her way down the stairs. She talks to the doorman Cliff, who knew Lottie most of her life. Cliff reveals that Lottie was living with her father in the days before she died, which contradicts what she had previously told Shona. I did quite enjoy Cliff's Lottie pop line about always giving her a lollipop, although it was a bit on the cheesy side, and this episode does skirt a fine line when it comes to that kind of thing. So Misty heads upstairs to Lottie's looking for her phone because it wasn't in her personal effects and any other clues. Lottie's dad says he's never even seen Misty before. Now, there is a reason for this, which I'll get to in a minute, though I think it also maybe speaks to how Misty is overestimated and ignored largely when it comes to the groups. Misty, again, thinking on her feet, which I really like, says Lottie accepted a package for her, so can she come in and get it? So she starts looking around. While pretending to look, she finds a receipt in her coat pocket, revealing that Lottie drew 50,000 out before her death, leading up to the death. Now, this is interesting. I've heard someone suggest that 50,000 was the same amount that she drew out of Travis's bank account back in season 1 before his death. I don't know if that's true, but I did speculate last week then maybe Lottie's death could be something similar to what happened to Travis. And this does seem to be a little bit of an inconsistency. The coat with the receipt in is the same one that Lottie had on last week, and it was right before her death she had it on. So I thought that was a bit off. I don't know if it's a continuity error, because I'm not sure why the coat would be back at the house or in their suite when she had it on before the death. Would it not have been with her, with the body, unless it was returned to the dad? I guess that's possible. Either that, or I don't know if it's implying it was moved by someone. I don't know if it puts the dad in the frame, maybe unlikely considering his mental health, but yeah, that just stood out to me a bit. Maybe it implies she stopped off somewhere or stopped back at her room, but she definitely seemed to have it on before she went underground last week, and it does look like that's right before her death. Lottie's dad also mentions that she was probably talking to one of those cult nuts, as he refers to it, like before her death in the lobby or something. And that's kind of when Misty starts putting the heat on Lottie or on Lottie's dad a little bit, partly as a way just to distract him as she's like hunting around. Walter and Shauna are also there, and they're pretending to be from the internet company. They're there to supposedly fix the connection. And this is one of the weaker sides, because it's a little bit on the goofy side. Like, some of this stuff I do enjoy, but the problem is there are too many sort of plot holes in a way, or too many questions, because did Walter or someone like him make it so the internet wasn't working, so they had an excuse? I mean, I guess he probably has the expertise, maybe. He seems very capable with this sort of stuff, but it was just a plot hole which came up. I mean, not a plot hole, but like a question. Is it because it can't just be a coincidence? Otherwise, they wouldn't know to like take advantage. But there's just stuff like that, and this stuff does border on a little bit of a goofy sort of thing. Walter tells Shauna he is trying to derail Misty's investigation because Misty comes alive with a challenge. I quite like that. That's something which you do think of with Misty. I still don't trust Walter, though, personally. I think he has his own agenda. So they're basically there to look at Lottie's internet history to try and find if there's anything suspicious or any clues. Walter ends up stealing a lock of Shona's hair. And this is a bit of a random thing, because he suggests, why don't we give each other a lock of hair? Almost as a faith type thing. And she's not up for that. So when she leaves the room, very luckily, very conveniently, there is a lock of her hair in the hat, so he takes it. So again, we'll have to see where that scene is going in another episode. Maybe if it's Shona who killed Lottie, maybe that's going to be something which could incriminate her. Might just use that as something to, like, sort of screw Shona to kind of incriminate her, regardless of if she's guilty or not. Or he could just use it as leverage, maybe something to blackmail her. I did enjoy, but as I said, it just was a little bit long-winded, and this is where you do get stuff which feels more like filler and could have been cut down. And some of this stuff, considering it doesn't in a way achieve that much, not in this episode anyway, does feel like it's a bit long-winded. Misty finds the phone in Lottie's room, but Walter gets the last laugh. I do like his checkmate line as well. That was a good one, because he has already swiped the phone and he's cloned it. Misty, with one of the lines of the episode, there's a lot of good lines actually in this episode, to be fair, but she says to him, "Can't believe you're the sort of person I let give Caligula a path," which is just brilliant. It's so great because she's so serious, and that's what makes it funny, but also heartbreaking because, like, this guy really meant something to her, and he's, like, broken her heart in this scene. So it's great stuff. I think is the scene of the whole episode, and that's in both timelines, and that's this really sad but also touching scene with Lottie's dad and with Shona. So Shona plays along when Lottie's dad, who clearly has dementia, confuses her for his daughter. And there's this great shot where Shona, as they're talking, and she realizes that he's confused her for Lottie, she has an image of Lottie as a teenager talking to the dad. He apologizes for not being a better dad, and Shona, again playing along, is just there for him, says it's not always easy, and basically on behalf of Lottie is almost like forgiving him. She agrees to go for a pizza and to see the new Scorsese movie with him, and this is a really clever touch because I'm guessing because of his dementia, he's remembering something that took place years ago, probably when Lottie was like a teenager, and like it was probably a much earlier Scorsese film, and he's got a memory of them going to see it, getting pizza first, and then going to see the movie. So I really like that touch. Shona imagines herself as Lottie. As I said, this is one of the more sympathetic scene for Lottie's father. It's a beautiful scene and one of the standouts of the episode. So Van asks where Ty disappeared to for an hour when they were in the city yesterday. Good question. Ty says she had to set up things for Van's special evening. Van is clearly worried about the thought of Dark Ty coming out to play. By the way, since I expect that Ty will be responsible somehow for the cabin burning down in the wilderness, I don't expect that she's the one responsible for Lottie's death, because I don't think they would have two big reveals like that and the answer both being Ty. I could be wrong, but that's my feelings on it. But I can definitely see why Van is concerned about that stuff. And again, Lauren Ambrose doing a really solid job in this episode. Ty gets a call from Simone asking if she can meet her and Sammy. Sammy asked to see Ty, I should say, as Simone says later. So this is the first time we've seen Sammy and Simone for quite a while. Van and Simone have a brief exchange, but are interrupted when Sammy backs away from Ty nervously and leaves the park with Simone. Later, we get a scene from Ty's point of view and see that Sammy asked her if she was still his mum. Because of some of the stuff we learned about Sammy in season 1, then he has certain abilities and obviously knows his mum very well, so he has been able to instinctively recognize that this is the darker version of Ty. This isn't the woman he knows as his mother, it's the darker side of Ty, and that's what freaked him out, and that's why he left the park. I will always be your mum, Ty says, and this is touching stuff. Actually, you do really feel for her, and I get the impression they're shifting back and forth a bit between dark Ty and regular Ty. Maybe, like, obviously when she says I will always be your mum, that does feel like the regular Ty coming out, unless it's somehow the darker side putting on some kind of an act, which is kind of freaky to think about, but that is possible. It is definitely a blurring of the lines sometimes. This is when Van and Ty have come back, and we see the other side of the conversation, because the scene originally was just focused on Van and Simone sitting down while Ty went to play with Sammy. So this was sort of a strange way to do this, because the reveal side didn't really seem to be big enough to kind of split it up like this. But I can see why you do it dramatically, because possibly there's then a bit of a mystery about why exactly Sammy freaked out and left the park, and I guess they just wanted like this little scene with Van and Simone as well. So it's not a big deal, but it's just something that struck me as a little bit of a weird way to do it. So Ty remembers this, and then she suggests to Van that it might be time for a new location. And Van agrees, so clearly they both agree it's time for a change. And because of Van's concerns, I could see why she would say, yeah, let's get away for a few days. And I'm assuming we're going to follow them either next week or at some point soon on their trip, and something big's going to happen. You would think you may be worried a little bit for Van about something which could happen. In a funny season for these two, getting more adult Van and Lauren Ambrose is a big plus, because I love that casting and she's playing the role so well. It's been great to get more of them as a couple and their relationships. They're a great couple, and I think most of their scenes this season I have actually enjoyed. Like, I really liked the one last week in New York, but it's just a little frustrating that they're a little bit on the back burner, because a couple of weeks ago I remember they had quite a big episode, but then last week it was like, apart from the New York scene, it was quite a small episode for them. And this week again, obviously the Sammy stuff was quite dramatic, but it still feels like, compared to some of the other characters, they are getting much smaller and lesser things to do. So it's a little bit frustrating, because, as I said, I like them as characters and I have enjoyed pretty much everything we've gotten from them, but it just feels like they're being a little bit sidetracked. Like, maybe the time in the adult timeline could be spread out a bit more, so you give them a little bit more each episode, and it's sort of like a 50-50 split or something. Some of like the stuff at Lottie's dad's house could have been lost this week. Frustration as well in the adult timeline this week is no Callie and Jeff. We got one small scene with Callie last week. You would have thought we would have got a bit more of her because of how close she was getting to Lottie, and as I said, maybe a bit of a missed opportunity. I know she is going to be back in next week, and no sign of Jeff this episode, so it was a bit frustrating not to have at least have one scene with them. But I know there is like a big family episode next week. Switch over to the wilderness and the teen timeline. Ben tries to befriend Akira by taking an interest in the baby animal she's looking after. The mother died yesterday. Next, asking if she knows what the group have planned for him. She doesn't know, she says. Akira running the farm, I think, is a nice touch for her this season, a nice character sort of beat, and it builds on like the interest she has in characters and this idea that she's suddenly spiritually in tune with nature. So that's a good touch, her running the farm. I do like that. The girls debate what form of execution to use on Coach Ben. Lottie shows them the picture that Travis drew last week. There's the picture again, just to remind you guys. So Lottie seems to believe, or says that until they know more about the picture and its meaning, then they shouldn't do anything to Coach Ben. So it's interesting because a lot of people online sort of believe that the picture had something to do with how Coach Ben would die. But Lottie doesn't believe that, and she just thinks we better find out more about its meaning before we act rashly, which is in general quite good advice, apart from the fact that I think most people are convinced that Coach Ben is innocent anyway. But I know Lottie mentions later that she thinks that Akira is one of the people in the picture, which is interesting. That's not something I'd thought of. So maybe if you go on this episode, the picture wasn't indicating how Coach Ben was going to die. But anyway, Shona and Natalie dismiss this. Shauna says that if Ben likes to play with fire, let him play with fire. So a very symbolic burn him to death type thing, idea coming from Shona. But Natalie shuts this down. And of course, Nat is the leader, so she can do that. She points out to Shona that that would be more like torture than it would justice. And that's a good point, especially since if Coach Ben is innocent, then that would be the lesser of two evil. What Nat suggests, which is to do it the old-fashioned way, which is death by firing squad. Natalie's new moral compass this season has been a good addition to her character, and it's a good counterpoint as well to Shona's more vengeful side. Typical Yellowjackets fashion, the girls decide who will be the one to shoot Ben by drawing cards. So it's not the Queen of Hearts this time. The unlucky person who would have to do it is the one who draws the King of Hearts. Or maybe lucky if you are Shona, of course. Van refers to the card as the Suicide King, which I do like. These scenes always feel high stakes and tense to watch, and this is no different. Ty ends up drawing the card. Ty and Van go target practicing. Van eggs Ty on, saying Ben deserves it. So how about this from Van? This is interesting to me because it says that she truly believes that Ben is guilty. It makes me think that either she's forgotten her dream from a couple of weeks ago, which does track because it appears as though only Akira remembers her dream. And both Shauna and Van seem to have forgotten about it, or it just means that perhaps if the wilderness did have the influence on the vote last week as appeared, if it wasn't just Shauna's strong arm in them, then it seems that maybe it's an effect of that, then she's forgotten her dream. So there's almost no guilty conscience. It's sort of like Van is very much in tune with most of the others in believing he is guilty. But she comes up with an alternative to Ty killing Coach Ben herself. And the alternative she suggests, which is a pretty radical idea, is then they somehow draw out Dark Ty, so the man with no eye version of her can kill Ben, almost as a way to give Ty a guilt-free conscience a bit more. So that's something they try to do. Now, again, some of this stuff can feel like it's dragging a bit. Some of it can feel like filler, but It dramatically works well for the characters, I think, and I enjoy most of the Taiwan stuff in the episode. So it makes sense to me, so I'm sort of fine with it. Melissa once again shows Shona that she believes in her. She says she's letting the past trauma drag her down, that being Shona, so she brings up people like Jackie, and then, of course, what happened with her baby. Shona is skeptical at first, but Melissa wins her over with a gift set, and that includes a holster for Shona's knife. So this is a nice setup for something that happens at the end of the episode. A guilty Misty brings Ben some fish for his dinner. Ben is impressed with this. Getting emotional, Misty says she's sorry and did her best. Ben says he knows and it's okay. And yes, we all know, because Misty was freaking fantastic as the defense last week. She truly did everything she could. This isn't on Misty, not one bit. Not for the first time, she steals maybe the line of the episode, which is, "You were my first boyfriend and my first amputee," which is darkly funny, but also touching. Such a Misty line. They say an emotional goodbye, because at this point they're convinced that Ben is going to die later, so this is their last chance to say goodbye. It really sucks to be Misty in both timelines. I feel for her this season. Lottie, Akira, and Travis agree to go back to the caves and try to find out more about the meaning of Akira's dream. Van and Ty decide that if they start having sex, it might draw the man with no eyes out. Thinking outside the box and also pissing off a portion of the internet, so it's a win-win really. It doesn't work. Instead they try a blood sacrifice, this time finding and killing a rabbit. Van reminds Ty they must do the ritual how Lottie showed them, so that's a nice touch as well, because if you go back to the past, Van was definitely one of the big supporters of Lottie and the whole magic ritual type thing. So that's a nice touch. The trees start to move, but nothing happened. The man with no eyes doesn't show up. So it seems that Ty must face the music. Travis has second thoughts about the cave plan, but Lottie convinces him to believe in his visions. He tells Akira he will be there to wake her up the moment things get too intense. Travis and Lottie lower Akira down slowly into the cave using a rope. And again, there's some quite good tense direction in this scene, the visual of her slowly moving down into the cave. Always looks good, that sort of visual. But at one point, the rope gets jammed, whether by natural causes or maybe something else. Akira passes out from the gas, like before, and has a dream where she's standing on the edge of a cliff, but Coach Ben is there as a bridge, so she's standing on Coach Ben, and he's the thing which is stopping her from falling off a cliff, so very symbolic. Later on, when Travis wakes her up, she tells him and Lottie that she wasn't scared, that Coach Ben can be trusted. Ben imagines hearing Paul's voice before being dragged off under a hood. So I like that they brought the Paul thing back into it. And it makes sense that moments before he believes he's going to die, then he would imagine his boyfriend, who at this point it looks as though he might not see again. And that's before he's dragged under a hood. Natalie puts Jackie's necklace on him and says she's sorry. Ben says, "This isn't who you are to Nat." Jen tries to put the hood back on. Ben stops her and insists, "If you're going to do this, look me in the eyes." Jen then snaps back viciously, saying, "You don't deserve that," and she forces the hood back on. So that's a strong moment for Jen, who I think is very much in the cult of Shona and Melissa. A scared Ben pleads with them all, saying, "This isn't you," etc. "Please don't do this." He's getting more and more desperate. Just as Ty is about to shoot him, Lottie jumps in front of him and saves him. She insists that Ben still has a purpose. Akira, in a trance, keeps repeating, "He's our bridge home. He's our bridge home." So very interesting stuff. I expected somehow he was going to survive, but I wasn't quite sure how. And I'm quite happy with the way that played out. On that night, Shauna and Melissa visit Ben. He tells them they can't kill him. Instead, Melissa uses Shauna's knife to cut off Ben's limb, making sure he can't escape. So it's almost like cruelly history repeating itself for Ben as he loses a limb there. As they leave, we see the others waiting, so they know about this whole thing and they approve the plan. So a way to stop him from running away, basically. It's almost a compromise. They're not going to kill him. Lottie has persuaded them that they still need him, but they're going to make sure he's not going to escape in the meantime. Natalie says to Shauna as she walks past, "You don't have to like it so much." And Shauna shoots back with, or "You don't have to enjoy it so much." Shauna shoots back with, "You don't have to act like such a saint." So again, I'm quite enjoying this sharp back and forth, and Natalie almost adding a little bit of a moral side as the counterpoint to Shauna, who really has starting to go postal this season, and only time will tell just how far she goes. And as they all head to bed, we hear Ben screaming in pain throughout the night, and we end with PJ Harvey's "Red of Me," which was a fantastic way to end the episode. I think it's the only bit of music in the episode. Some episodes you get littered with a lot of different songs, but I'm pretty sure apart from the intro, this was the only song of the episode, and it was just a great choice for that scene. They nailed that choice. And the episode, although the episode, as I said, is a bit of a mixed bag and a bit up and down, I think it is the weakest of the season so far and a bit of a filler. But it was a strong way to end the episode, and it does set out some promising things moving forward. Of course, we're only halfway through the season, because overall I've definitely been positive on this season so far, especially the stuff in the wilderness. This was a bit of a frustrating episode at times. Adult Shauna, I think, might be my MVP of the episode, and in recent weeks I didn't think I would say that. I think she definitely has a better episode this week. Misty, as I said, was on great form. We'll just leave you guys with some questions. When exactly will we get Hilary Swank this season, and who will she be playing? Will it be Melissa, like some people have speculated? Because Melissa does seem quite a logical survivor from the wilderness. The suggestion, like, she could be a relative of a survivor, I think that is possible as well. Another thought I had, not that I think Hilary Swank would be playing her, but Jen is starting to get a little bit more involved in stuff this season as well, almost because of her association with Melissa, and Melissa's been upgraded because of the Shauna stuff. So it's also possible Jen might survive the wilderness and have a role to play in the present. Whole Pit Girl stuff and that whole mystery, and who exactly those characters are, who's Pit Girl herself. I mean, who knows? People like Jen and Melissa could be involved. Shona and Melissa torture Ben more before the season is out, and you've got to think, if Shauna can get away with it, she might be tempted to do that. Like Ben just being there day in and day out, the temptation might be a bit too much for Shauna to resist. Will Ben survive the season? If so, do you think he will play a role in getting them home, like Akira has predicted? That's definitely a very interesting nugget. Do you think he survives much longer? do you think he makes it out the season alive? I mean, at the start of the season, you would have said that was a long shot, because it did seem like this would be the season where one way or the other, by the end, he would be killed somehow. Will the camp split into two halves? Will we get like a Team Shauna versus Team Natalie divide and maybe feud? Because I think there is a lot of potential. Like I said, I have enjoyed some of the counterpoint stuff with those two. What team would Mari pick in that scenario? That's an interesting question I have too. Well, I think it is, just because I think she's one of those. It's hard to tell where her allegiance would lie. So question 4, can you see Shauna becoming camp leader by the end of the season? Certainly Melissa and Jen both seem to want that to happen. Because of some of the stuff which came out from Natalie, like it was revealed in the trial that she knew about Coach Ben's whereabouts. That stuff isn't just going to go away. You've got to think at some point that's going to come back up, and that maybe Shauna could use it as a way to gain a bit of power over Natalie. Walter be trusted? Does he have a hidden agenda? I think he may well do, but let me know what you think of that, guys. Question 6. Do you believe that Lottie's death was an accident, ritual or otherwise? So I doubt very seriously she fell down the stairs. I don't think it would be that simple, but obviously you have the candles there at the scene, which mirrors a little bit what happened with Travis in season 1. As I said, I speculated last week that maybe she was trying a similar sort of ritual, and it's possible it went wrong, or it is possible someone might have killed her, because there are a few characters who would have natural motivations to do that. So what do you think? Do you believe that Lottie's death was an accident? If not, who killed her? I don't think it was suicide, personally. I think either she was trying a ritual and it went wrong, or I think someone did kill her. I mean, Callie's a name which has been thrown in there as possible. I'm not sure why she would kill her, considering she does seem to be drawn towards Lottie, so I think that would have to be explained. But I think some people have suggested that could be a thing with Callie, maybe a way to act out, or I don't know if maybe they're thinking she went after Lottie after she was thrown out of the house, and that she tried to talk her into coming back or something like that, and maybe things got out of hand. It's a lot, guys. I'll be back next week with more Yellow Jackets coverage for episode 6, a little bit more classic. I am covering the West Wing as well on the channel every episode from the start, and I just posted a new West Wing review earlier. But thanks for listening, guys. Let me know what you think about this week's Yellow Jackets. Let me know what you think about some of my questions or ideas in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Support me on patreon.com/borednow. That's just $1 a month. Keep watching TV, and I'll see you guys soon.